So we are going to continue about the topic that is related with dystocia that what we are seeing, and so what we see that dystocia, that is the abnormalities in the labor, we have seen in the previous lecture. So now we are going to continue with this, that is what abnormal presentation and position and development of the fetus, that persistence, occipital or posterior or transverse position, and whatever it leads to the transverse position can lead to the that of dystocia. And what we see that the rotation of the head is opposite or no rotation occurs can lead to the dystocia, or most often undergo spontaneous anterior rotation followed by uncomplicated delivery, or if you do the forceps delivery, manual rotation of forceps rotation are possible when necessary, and if not, then neither can be done. Then we can think about the cesarean section. Then what we see that shoulder dystocia. In shoulder dystocia, what we see that anterior shoulder impacted behind the pubic symphysis. What we see in this diagram, that is shoulder dystocia. This in this diagram, what we see that anterior shoulder, it is impacted behind the pubic symphysis. And what is the danger includes, that is the entrapment of the cord, inability of the child chest to expand properly, and the severe brain damage or death may occur of the child during this. Child is not delivered within, if the delivery does not take place within minutes, so it can lead to that of mm, death of the child also. So that is called as a shoulder dystocia. Here what we see, that is anterior shoulder, it is affected behind the pubic symphysis. So that is shoulder dystocia. And the obstructed labor. Obstructed labor, if you see that, in what is the definition of it? When the progress of labor is completely stopped, and stopped despite of the strong uterine contraction. Though there is a strong uterine contraction, there is still the progress, the, strong uterine contraction, but the progress of the fetus passing is does not take place, or progress of the labor does not take place. Then that is called as a obstructed labor. And what we see in this diagram, that what we see that it is a CPD, that is contracted pelvis. Here it is the contracted pelvis which is present, and what it leads to, whatever the pressure which is given by the uterine contraction, it is normal, there is no problem. But problem over here, that is the pelvis, the shape of the pelvis, that what we have seen in the normal introduction part, that is the normal shape of the shape of the pelvis is important, that is gynecod shape, all this is important. If there is an abnormality in that platypulad or other one, can lead to the difficulty in the labor, that is called as a contracted pelvis. See here. And so that the delivery does not take place, that is called as a obstructed labor. See, what we see in normal shape, this is the normal shape of the abdomen from here. See, what is the pregnant lady abdomen, how it looks like? It is the convex structure. But if it is if this is the legs of the females, so what we see, then there is just one little bit of compression over here, that is called as a Bandel's ring. See, this is normal and this is Bandel's ring. So it is a retracted upper uterine segment and distended lower uterine segment. Means what we see that upper uterine segment is being retracted and the lower uterine segment is more distended as compared to upper part. And whatever this form, that is called as a Bandel's ring, which is seen in which condition? Whether it is in the normal? No, it is not in the normal. It is in the obstructed labor. That is what we see here, obstructed labor. Then sometimes it may happen that whatever the normal labor, that it has to take place that is up to the 40 weeks of. But sometimes it happens that there is a premature rupture of the membrane, or it may be also called as PROM, premature rupture of membrane. And whatever its consequences, sometimes what we do that maybe preterm labor, there is a abruption of the placenta, or some abruption of, that is what is the normally situated placenta, it is dislodged from its original site, can lead to the APH, that what we have seen in the previous lecture. Then prolapse of umbilical cord can be present, or chorioamnionitis, that is the chorioamnionitis. Then leukocytosis, that is the leukocytosis is there, CRP, it is elevated, and the amniotic fluid infected may be there, and maternal temperature may be in, it is 38 degrees Celsius, or it is more than that, and it can lead to the changes in the fetus, that the fetus, if you see that fetal tachycardia is there, and there is a danger of IRDS. So that is the PROM, premature rupture of membrane. That will be the abnormalities. Then what we see that there is an injuries to the birth canal. There is a two terminologies, that is injuries to the birth injuries and birth injuries to the canal. Birth injuries, that is related with that of fetus, and the birth injuries to canal, that is it is related with the problem to the mother. So that what we have to differentiate. Birth injuries, it is birth injuries to the fetus, and birth injuries to canal, that is related with that a problem to the mother genital tract. So what can it lead to? So it can lead to the maternal injuries following the childbirth process are quite common. Maternal injuries where it can lead to, so birth injuries to the canal, that is vulva. It can lead to the laceration, and the para-urethral tear can take place. There may be, if you go to upside, that is the injury to the vagina, isolated vaginal tears, or laceration without involvement of the perineum or the cervix, or following instrumental or manipulative delivery, that is forceps delivery. If you use it, can lead to the injury to the vagina. And sometimes there is associated with breast hemorrhage. That may be the problem. Then colporexis, that is the rupture of the wall of the vagina, is called as a colporexis. That is, it may be primary, secondary, or complete variety. And if you want to treatment, so treatment it is limited to the wall close to the cervix. Repair is done from below, and the tear extends high up. That is laparotomy is to be done simultaneously with resuscitation measures. So in that situation, you can for the injury you can go from above downwards, or from downwards above. Anyway, so that you can think about it. And the cervix, that is we are going here from below upward. So cervix, that is the commonest cause of traumatic PPH, that is postpartum hemorrhage. And the causes may be anything, that may be heterogenic, something, sometimes it may happen that whatever the cervix, it is too much of rigid, that may be the cause. Or sometimes the cervix is normal, but if there is a too much of uterine contraction from the upside, that can also lead to the cervical problem. And the detachment. So heterogenic, that is attempted forceps, or if you use our breech extraction is there, if forceps delivery takes place, that can also lead to the cervical problem, cervical trauma. Or if the cervix is rigid, that is, it maybe depends upon, sometimes it may be congenital situation, or it may be acquired, or acquired, that is scar from the if there is a previous operation, amputation, or conization lesions, like carcinoma of cervix has taken, and if there is a scar, that can also lead to the rigid cause. And if what I already explained, that is a strong uterine contraction can be there. And detachment in the sense that annular and anterior lip, so that is the annular detachment of the cervix, that is maybe annular, which involved the entire circumference of the cervix, that is annular, that is following prolonged labor in primary cervical dystocia. And the anterior lip, that is may involve only anterior lip when it is lip between the head and the pubic symphysis. So that is the birth injuries to the canal. Then sometimes there is a hematoma. That is, what is hematoma? It is a collection of the blood, and where it takes place in the pelvic. So but obviously it is a pelvic hematoma, and it can take place anywhere from that of pelvic peritoneum to that of perineal skin. It can, so location wise, it can be anywhere. And what are the anatomical types? What we can think of? It is the, if it is intraannular hematoma or supraannular hematoma. And the commonest, if you see that, it is the bulbar hematoma. It is quite common. Then sometimes it may happen that there is a rupture of the uterus also takes place. That may be a problem to the during the delivery. So what is it? Is a disruption in the continuity of all the uterine layers. That is all. That is whatever the three layers of uterus. It is endometrium, myometrium, and serosa. And when it takes place, time-wise, if you see that, so it takes place after the 28 weeks. That is 28 weeks of pregnancy. That and that there is called as a rupture of the uterus. So what happens? There is a perforation or rupture of the rudimentary pregnant horn. And how much incidence wise, if you see that, so about if you see the 2000 pregnancies, that in that to 1 in 200 deliveries. And scar rupture following increased incidence of cesarean section over the years. And if there is a rupture of the uterus, then there is an increased incidence of cesarean section. That's what we have observed. And the last one is, that is what is the complication of third stage, that is the placenta. Normally, what we know that the placenta, what we see that placenta normally just by pulling this, it discharges from its original site normally up to 30 minutes. But if even after completion of the 30 minutes, it does not comes outward, then it is called as a retained placenta. That is how it is seen in this diagram. It is removed manually. That is supporting the fundus while detaching the placenta. So that is the manual removal if it is normally does not take place. So the placenta is said to be retained when it is not expelled from the uterus even 30 minutes after the delivery of the baby. That is the definition of it. And normally the placenta is expelled in three stages. It's first separates from the uterine muscle, then it descends into the lower uterine segment, and third, definitely it expelled outside. And anything problems can occur at any these three stages. It may be problem at the first stage, that is, it does not separate from the uterine muscle. That is what we have seen, abnormalities of the placenta accreta, increta, and paracreta, where it is too much of attached to the inner layer of the uterus. So that can also lead to this. Or if it does not descend to the lower uterine segment, or if it does not expel outside the uterus, that is, the uterine contraction does not expel that much, can lead to these problems. And next, then the other problems which can take place is the PCOS. What we see that it is the heavy bleeding which is coming after that, which takes place after the delivery. The postpartum, that is called as a postpartum hemorrhage. We have seen antepartum hemorrhage, that is the hemorrhage which takes before the delivery, that is after 28 weeks and before the delivery. So, and postpartum hemorrhage, it is the hemorrhage which refers to any amount of bleeding from or into the genital tract following birth of the baby and up to the end of the puerperium. How much time of the puerperium? It is about 6 weeks after the delivery. Puerperium, again, it is divided into three parts: immediate puerperium, early puerperium, and the late puerperium. Immediate, that is within hours, 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours immediately after the delivery. Early puerperium, that is the for some 4 to 5 days, and the late puerperium, that is up to 6 weeks. And what is puerperium? It is the whatever the changes which takes place in the genital tract, uterus, takes place and comes to the normal site, that is what is the physiological site which is present during the pre-pregnant state, that is called as a puerperium. So that is what we have seen about the whatever the abnormalities which takes place during the delivery to the mother. That's what we have